For Off the Block, I'm Vanny Lopes, and we are now joined by the NCAA Men's Volleyball Selection Committee Chairman Ron Shayka, as we are about a month away from Selection Saturday. And Ron, you've been on this committee before, but what is this type of time like for you in the year as we get closer and closer to the postseason and Selection Saturday?
Vinny, it's always fun this time of year because things start heating up and matches start taking on better, more significance, and as a committee, we really try to focus on our individual regions as far as keeping track of what's happening with our schools, and we get together and talk periodically on a conference call just to see what the committee is witnessing in each of the regions. So we do our preliminary talks, we look at a lot of the metrics, RPI numbers, and look forward to interesting matchups. For example, Conference Carolina has Pfeiffer and Erskine in a match this weekend, so we kind of anticipate where crucial matchups are on the schedule and just follow them to the end.
Yeah, I do want to ask you about one of the metrics being RPI. You know, anytime the RPI gets introduced, I think a lot of people are fearful that it's going to be women's volleyball where it's the be-all, end-all. You know, last year, I know we didn't see that. It was just one component. How do you view the RPI this year? Is it more the same that this is just one of many components and metrics that you use, or is there a more heavy weight placed on the RPI come Selection Saturday in determining the teams?
You know, I think, again, it's one of the components that goes in, and really it helps us maybe separating those tight squeezes where you look at a couple different schools and they're close, and one has an advantage in one area over another, and you put all those things kind of in a grid or a matrix, and when it comes down to it, if it really isn't swayed heavily one way or the other, then the RPI might be a deciding factor if it's real close. But oftentimes the individual pieces of the RPI, whether it be head-to-head or wins and losses, that there's such a major change in that, then we'll go with those metrics. But it's one component, and it really helps. And I think each year, as you see more and more cross-conference matches being played, the RPI becomes that much more valuable.
Yeah, I do want to ask you about the non-conference play, because I know 2 years ago the committee really placed an emphasis on wanting teams to play more non-conference. This year, we saw a lot of non-conference matches take place with teams traveling all across the country. You know, how excited were you as a selection committee chairman just to see that emphasis in non-conference play pay off this year?
That really put a smile on my face when I saw schedules and saw the effort that schools were making to play outside their regular conference, outside of their regular footprint. That was one of the goals that the committee has had for years, and it seems like schools have responded, and it's been great for the sport. And that was one of the ulterior motives of it. Not only does it help us gain a better perspective on what the levels are, the teams across the country, but just from a spectator interest standpoint, it's great where schools now see opponents coming into their gym that may have never come to their gym, and now the interest level's peaked, and it's been good all around.
Yeah, and you know, one of the interesting components about this season is going to be the play-in matches. And I'd love just ask you a little bit about this, because I know that there's been talk potentially they could be played on campus or on-site locations, or they can be played at Penn State that Tuesday before the semifinals. So what's going to be the determining factors for the selection committee on where to place those matches?
Vinny, that's a great question, and that's one where this is an inexact science, this whole play-in structure within the NCAA. And I think what the NCAA tries to do, at least initially, is try to have some common methodology across all of sports, and where there are other sports that have play-ins, generally in the play-ins are played on the campuses. They're not played at the site of the championships. We got off a couple of years ago on a different foot in men's volleyball, mainly because of the small number of teams that we have, and we were able to have the teams come to the championship site, and it made sense financially. What's happened with the second year of that model is the NCAA is able to at least look at some financial data to see what it means to to have all 6 teams at one site versus the possibility of playing it on college campuses. So that's really the major factor making this decision, is what does it look like financially as far as the outcome for the NCAA.
Yeah, and how? I'm assuming then going with that, then we won't know until Selection Saturday where these playing matches will take place. Then is that correct?
That's correct, and they will be evaluating that information there at the national office right up to that minute and looking at possibilities and trying to give us at least a little bit of a heads up as to the what ifs. What if this school and this school are in, and that school and that school, and what does that mean for matchups? What does that mean for potential travel? What does that mean for air flights, things like that? And those are the things that will go into making that decision.
Yeah. Now, I know that we can't get into specific teams, but I do want to ask you as a whole this season, has there been anything that has positively surprised you as you've been able to see some of the matches throughout this year?
I don't know if surprised is the right word, but intrigued. I really have been interested to see, particularly out west, how there's a real battle at the top with a number of schools, and it's really interesting to see that, because whoever gets hot down the stretch could make a move that kind of solidifies their chances to get one of the top 2 seeds, and that may be determined really late in the season. So, as I mentioned earlier, these matches take on greater and greater importance as we're into April now, and it's fun to see. And some of that's happening in Conference Carolinas as well, with 3 teams bunched at the top. The EIVA, you've seen Penn State lose a conference match to St. Francis for the first time in 30-some matches or years. I don't even know what it was, but it must be years. So, things are happening, and as this competition gets tighter and tighter, you're going to see maybe some different teams that may not have been there.
All right, and final question, we'll let you go on this. This is your final year in your term as the chairman for the men's volleyball selection committee. Just talking about your time on the committee, what are you most proud of, and is there anything left that you hope to accomplish before your term ends in the summer?
I really, as I mentioned earlier, I smile when I think about the cross-conference play, because I'm really proud of that. I think the committee as a whole has had that as a goal for many years, and it's one that I try to champion throughout the years, because I think years ago we had a fair amount of cross-conference championships, and then for a number of reasons that backed off for a little bit. So that seems to be coming back. The other thing that I think that helps is just spreading the talent a little bit, because teams can get out to different areas of the country now, and talent is spread out. And my hope is that the men's game continues to have greater parity, because in my belief, it will make the game more interesting, and it will ultimately grow. And if there was one thing that I really wished would have happened a little bit more over my tenure, is to add a few more Division I programs, but that hasn't happened, and that may be something that I pursue even after I get off the committee.